their very existence, so to speak, life and limb under threat. We are going to be focusing tonight on Indaba on Haiti, not too far away from Florida. But a lot has been happening inside and outside, but more particularly what has transpired recently in the Dominican Republic, which is right next door to Haiti. In fact, Hispaniola. Together they make up Hispaniola, so they kind of are next to each other. But to tell us a little bit more about that, and of course the African report, let's join, of course, Dr. Fergus and Shabaka Kambon.
Yes, good evening. Good evening to all our listeners on 91.1 FM. Good evening, particularly to Ruskin. Thank you very much for having us this evening. And of course, a pleasant good evening or good morning, wherever you are on Facebook and YouTube Live. Yes, my brother. Nice to see you, Shabaka.
Greetings.
Yes.
Doctor, I've been meaning to get in touch with you, man. There's so much happening. And of course, we haven't gotten around to reviewing your book, your latest book yet. So we have lots to talk about.
Yeah, well, I had to trouble your conscience a little bit. So.
No, man. I really look forward to having. In fact, what I wanted to tell you is that what we should try to do is have an Indaba, a public Indaba, where we go somewhere like the National Library Amphitheater, and we have a discussion on the book there and invite the public to come and participate in the conversation. And either we pre-record it or we go live. I think that's the way it should be done. I've been thinking about it for a couple of days there, and that's the approach I would want to take to that discussion.
Whatever, welcome.
I have been in touch with some of our brothers and sisters out in Martinique. I know that's not the subject for tonight's show, but let me tell you, it sounds insane. Activists are being shot and hurt and imprisoned, and it seems that the French have brought in elite riot suppression forces. It's not a pretty situation at all. It's a very, very dicey one, and and it's unfortunate that that news is not making more of an impact here in the English-speaking Caribbean in southern Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, that's always the case, huh? Once it's not America, Europe, things seem not to make the news, not even Africa, not India, not any part of Asia. Unless it makes the news in the United States as well on the American media. That's the only way it's going to make the news down here because, those things are not newsworthy on their own unless they make the news. They're validated somewhere else. It's so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate.
It is. And as a former journalist myself, I can explain to you exactly how it happens. Unfortunately, it's so tragic because we have a very lazy attitude towards news production in Trinidad. Once it's not local, we just take whatever Reuters and AP sends to us and we choose, whatever is most interesting. We just haven't really made a commitment to regional, Central and South American hemispheric news. We just haven't made a commitment to Caribbean news, and unfortunately. This is you see the impact of it when things like this are happening.
Yeah, it has to do also with our sense of identity or lack of it. Because if we see ourselves as Caribbean people, pan-Caribbean people, we are going to have a greater focus on things that happen in the Caribbean, and not simply what is fed to us by the imperialist media in particular. So I'm with you on that one. The thing is how to change it, because we can complain from now till forever. The thing is, how do we change that?
Well, when I was in the news, we set out a blueprint. When I was director or broadcast producer of Latin America Today, we just simply set up correspondence in all the Latin American capitals. Especially those places where news was where there was rich happenings. We tried to meet as many people as possible, and we took news directly from the source. We realized that we didn't need to rely on on the Associated Press and the other one based in Reuters, based in Washington D.C. We could get our news ourselves directly from the source, so it can be done.
We have a veteran newsman with us on 91.1, perhaps, he can share some views with us. He can come in, Ruskin, and share some views. What is the situation with respect to news making outside of sports? I know, you're more likely to say what's going on in sports. But even in sports, it's not something you hardly would ever hear what's going on in sports in Martinique or Guadeloupe either. So that aspect of the Caribbean is almost totally silenced by our media.
Yeah. Doctor, I'm missing our sister Renee tonight.
I thought she was going to be frontline with us, but she's probably in the background for whatever reason. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so we should be going on to the Africa report now. Yeah, so what I'm doing, this is the fourth personality. I did say I was going to deal with 4. I was hoping to end off this evening, but I think I'm going to do a 2-part series because what attracted me to this guy was his views on the Constitution and how it affects activism, the struggle for social justice, and so on. But I am delaying the constitutional aspect for another time, or part B. This evening, I will be looking at his views with respect to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was a pioneer strategy that was copied by a lot of other countries subsequently. Many countries would have followed. But
I didn't realize that.
The failure is mainly with respect to the failure and shortcomings, because his position right now is as a commissioner on the Human Rights Commission of South Africa. And therefore, that is his portfolio as well. So, he is seeking to, in a sense, to re-engage and to complete the work of the TRC that had been dropped. Actually, they had dropped the ball somewhere. But I like his ideas. I think it's his ideas. He has these novel ideas that he brings to understanding post-apartheid South Africa. And mainly because of that, I thought he was an exciting new voice, new thinking, new ideas. Mm-hmm. So,
I'm excited about that. But, I was not aware that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission had been replicated in other countries.
Several other countries, many in Africa, in Canada, in a lot of other places. Truth and Reconciliation committees, many. Okay, it became a model for dealing with the crimes and oppressions of colonialism, whether external colonialism or internal, such as in Canada, the United States, and so on.
Yes, okay. That's nice.
Yeah, right. Yes. So let's deal with it. Renee, I don't know what's going on with me now. Something is affecting my voice. Yeah.
30 years into democracy, how do you explain that South Africa continues to be the most unequal country in the world? Today, South Africa is the most unequal country in the world, according to the World Bank, according to the United Nations. The most unequal country in the world. So how do we understand this? How do we understand that on the one hand, we had this Truth and Reconciliation Commission, on the other hand, the most unequal country in the world?
That was sociologist and professor of law Teppo Madlingosi, one of South Africa's most highly respected legal minds and a leading advocate and activist for reparatory justice and human rights. What was the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, or TRC?
The TRC, established in 1995 for 3 purposes. Number 1, to get a full picture of the past. Number 2, to give amnesties to those who qualify. And then lastly, to identify victims and to give them reparations.
As a nation state, this outlook establishes South Africa as a pioneer of the modern reparation movement. Professor Madlingosi is the Africa Report's final personality in our 4-part series. Like the previous 3, Madlingosi exemplifies the determination to overcome adversity as a child and become an icon of success and the agent of social transformation. Born in Bloemfontein, the capital of Free State Province, at the height of the apartheid system, Teppo considered himself fatherless because his father, who worked in the Welcome mines over 300 kilometers away, could only visit the family 3 times per year and spend no more than 2 weeks per visit. His mother, a nurse, eventually went to live near the mines to be with her husband, leaving Teppo to the care of his struggling grandparents. His father would die in the mines. The conflict between the stakeholders of apartheid and its victims ended in a compromise, the 1994 Emancipation Constitution, a lopsided compromise weighted against the victims. The TRC was a critical appendage to the Constitution, which would hopefully address the failure to include reparations. This Africa report will focus only on Madlingozi, the Commissioner for Anti-Racism, Justice and Education on South Africa's Human Rights Commission, a post that he was appointed to in January 2024. Even as Commissioner, Madlingozi is at heart an activist for reparatory justice, a lifestyle born of his youthful experiences of structural injustice under apartheid. Shortly after graduating from law school, Madlingozi became the spokesman for the Kulumani movement. Kulumani, which means speak out, was founded in 1995 by women survivors of apartheid violence and soon became the largest human rights organization with over 104,000 registered members seeking reparation, restitution, and redress. Indigenous South Africans and much of the world had looked upon the Truth and Reconciliation Commission as the bedrock upon which post-apartheid South Africa would swing the social and economic pendulum toward equity and justice, righting the imbalance in the Emancipation Compromise, an imbalance which was glaring by its omission in the Constitution of the following.
The South African Constitution, in its preamble, talks about conflicts of the past. If you read the South African Constitution, the word apartheid is not in the Constitution. The word colonialism is not in the Constitution.
The government of Nelson Mandela envisioned the TRC as a necessary exercise to enable South Africans to come to terms with their past on a morally acceptable basis and to advance the cause of reconciliation. The TRC would sit for only 2 years, which negatively impacted its usefulness for reparatory justice. Madlingozi explains, however, that such reconciliation was functional to the ideology of transitional justice, and that transitional justice is designed to deliberately avoid decolonization and to preserve the fundamentals of the colonized economy. Therefore, he concludes, the TRC had no truth and no reconciliation because of the missing J.
Something is missing. The J is missing. It's only TRC. The J is missing. What is a J? Justice is missing. Truth and reconciliation. The J is missing.
Madlingozi argues that without the J, the TRC easily avoided dealing with fundamentals of the past and became a facilitator of collective amnesia.
In South Africa, we had everything. Colonialism, genocide, slavery, dispossession, forced removal, so-called homelands. We had ghettos, concentration camps. Of course, we had apartheid. All of these things happened in South Africa. It was not just political conquest, of course. It was land dispossession. It was economic subjugation. It was epistemicide. Epistemicide meaning the killing of indigenous knowledge. Epistemicide, the killing of indigenous knowledge. The killing of indigenous ways of being in the world. Their culture, their religion, their frame of reference. But also it's a country of hope, of course. It's a microcosm of hope. By the way, my name Tsepo means hope. So I also come with hope.
Madlingozi applied the official United Nations understanding of reparatory justice to the TRC to expose its major flaw.
For perpetrators to get amnesty, which was good, you did not have to say, I'm sorry. All you had to do was to tell the truth and to connect the incident to a political motive. Only 2 criteria. So what most perpetrators did was to come to the TRC and then read their lawyer's letter. My name is Tebo. I killed that person's father because he was black. Very robotic, very technical, and they got amnesty. Do not have to say sorry. The victims do not have anything to say whether they accept it or not.
The Kulumani movement had also ejected the TRC's ideology of gradual reconciliation. Madlen Ngozi theorized this rejection to distinguish two modes of victims' responses to colonial crimes.
Bad victims are victims of mass atrocities who do not behave like good victims. Good victims are victims who accept the transition, who accept the compromise, who accept the elite reconciliation. Bad victims are bad victims because they reject liberal peace. They are bad victims because they refuse this narrative where, on every day of commemoration, victims come out, they tell their stories, they cry, they go home. Those are good victims. Kulumani are what I call bad victims.
Do not misunderstand him. The bad ones are the agents of change and truth. He is on their side. Even if we disagree on Madlen Ngozi's terminology, the construct is still applicable to any post or anti-colonial situation. The Kulumani movement also rejected the neo-apartheid narrative that the trauma of generations of victims was a thing of the past and should be put behind in a new South Africa.
The history is in the present. The past is in the present. The past is in the present. So a refusal of the idea that the past is in the past. Because that is central to South African mythology. Central to South African mythology. The idea that the past is in the past. Hence we have the word transitional justice, to transition from one A to B, transitional justice. Concepts such as the new South Africa, right? Newness. When we say the past is in the present, is to refuse epistemologically, culturally, cosmologically, the Western architecture of time.
As Commissioner for Anti-Racism, Justice and Education, Madlen Ngozi sees his major task as completing the unfinished business of the TRC.
Yes, so there you have it. Some interesting concepts. He started off, I couldn't present all of them. I didn't want to crowd the presentation with too many, but one of the things he said is South Africa is a country without a name. He challenges these things. He talks about decolonization, and his objective is to seek truth and justice along the lines of Ubuntu and African traditional spirituality and so on. So that's the kind of mindset that we have, and that is now in charge of the Human Rights Commission in South Africa. So hopefully,
this is right now under the new government arrangements of the ENC.
Well, he transitioned from the older to the new. He was appointed for a certain number of years. So it had nothing to do with the election. He was there in January, the election was in May. And this new format of governance, therefore, would have met him in the post. They have not interfered with that. I doubt they will interfere with it. It's the kind of position that goes with a certain tenure and not just with change of government.
Yeah. Well, when you hear him talk about the outcome of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission without justice, you can understand why it's so popular with the powers that be in post-colonial settings. It makes sense. I remember when during that period of Truth and Reconciliation meetings, there was one of the perpetrators of these crimes. I don't remember his name off the top of my head. He refused to come in, and and some of his victims were forced to come in and apologize for their efforts in the struggle. People like Winnie Mandela, for example, was humiliated in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the work that she did to defend the rights of the people of South Africa. Whereas some of the perpetrators just said, "I'm not going in," and nobody went after them.
Yeah, he
So
addressed that point as well, Shabaka. He said that one of the real serious shortcomings of the commission was that it sat for just 2 years. Some other Truth and Reconciliation Commissions in other countries that came after would have sat for 7 years, 10 years. He said at the beginning, a number of people would have been skeptical about approaching the commission, whether in truth and in fact there would be no retribution, and so on. And if they had sat for longer, maybe more people would have come forward. Besides, only about 16,000 South Africans were recognized for reparations. A number of people did not approach the commission, not because they didn't want to, but because all of the circumstances, distance and all of that, the time that it met. So there were a number of shortcomings. Then he said, there was this Christianized approach, and probably because of the chairmanship of the committee, Desmond Tutu, Archbishop, was there. And he said, so that African centeredness in dealing with injustice wasn't there, So he was very, very critical of the whole thing.
I don't know that you need to be Afro-centered to include even an apology in something like that. I don't know why that wasn't required. I think that's very disrespectful. I also, I'm fascinated by the fact that apartheid and colonization was not included in the constitution. I mean, the more we learn about South Africa, the more we realize the terrible dearth of justice that took place in those early Mandela years.
Yeah, well, the first clip I used was from another interview, and the interviewer, Dr. Sizwe Mpufu Walsh, actually said, and Martin Zoli agreed that the earlier drafts of the Constitution did include apartheid and racism, but the final product was silent on it. Most of those earlier drafts would have come directly from ANC draftsmen, legal draftsmen. But it was not that they did not contemplate, but the negotiations behind the door scenes and all kinds of secret deals that went on.
Well, obviously, they were good victims,
yeah,
and they accepted the liberal compromise. Now the past is in the past in South Africa. And now
but that's the point he's making. The past is not in the past. He made that point very clear. The past is in the present. You have to deal with it. It's a fundamental ideology that the past is not in the past. He said there's a European version of time, concept of time. African time is circular. There is no past and present. The past is in the present, and therefore the pain, generational trauma, and so on, cannot be dismissed. And we talk about those things, with respect to our reparations movement as well, and even with respect to...
Doctor, we could have had this conversation about the Caribbean, and all the same things would have applied here in terms of our own decolonial process. But
exactly, that's why I brought this. I did make the point clearly, but in the interest of time, I just mentioned in the end that, we can all learn lessons on reparations from dealing with that situation in South Africa.
Indeed.
It's so fundamental, so universal.
Thanks, Doc. Thanks for bringing that information to our attention, and again, putting that transition in South Africa in the spotlight. Tonight, though, we have two of our brothers from Haiti, two Haitian brothers, to talk to us about what's happening there, to bring us up to date with the latest in the latest issues that are afflicting or affecting the lives, that vying for the lives and well-being of our Haitian brothers and sisters. And of course, I think the most prominent thing is the new series of deportations that that are in the works. Brothers and sisters, Brother Pierre, Brother Madsen, welcome to Indaba.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to share with you, our brothers and sisters around the world, of what's going on in Haiti, and especially at this time, what's happening in the Dominican Republic with the Haitian population there. To give you a context of what's going on, so things in the Dominican Republic had been always hard for Haitians, but last week the Dominican government announced they will be deporting 10,000 Haitians every week. With that, the next day, no, actually the same day, the president replaced the actual head of the immigration agency. So to make sure that he send that message, that's what we're gonna do. And the next day, immediately they started executing the plan of hunting Haitians everywhere. So the background of this situation is really complex. So we won't have time to discuss it. That would take us several hours to discuss the background of this situation. But I will just share with you what's happening now. What's the situation at this moment? So first of all, um, I would say strategically, uh, Dominican government they decided to make all Haitian illegal in the country. How they did that? Since September last year, they haven't issued any visa. So no Dominican embassy or consulate in the world had issued a single visa to Haitian citizens. And during that same period, also, residents, legal residents in the DR, they decided not to renew their residency cards or work permits. So exactly a year after, like everyone become illegal. So for the residency thing, we started processing them starting in May this year, but very slowly. So strategically, they make they made everyone illegal in the country, and exactly a year after, they decided to start with this mass deportation. So now, basically, the government is using the police, the armed forces, immigration agents, so everyone hunting Haitian citizens everywhere in the country. So they do that by going to our homes, public transportation, workplaces, everywhere. So now, if you are black in the DR, you are a suspect. So
Yes.
they are,
Well, not if, well. Let's clarify that for the sake of our listeners. If you're dark skinned,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So we can
because
use that term. We
most people in the
can
rep,
go with that. No problem. Yeah,
yeah, most
yeah,
people are from the dom rep. If they were to travel to Europe or North America, they would be considered black.
yeah. So that's the thing. I mentioned it. I think it was on Monday this week. I read a Dominican influencer published on X, former Twitter, say, "Hey, my fellow Dominican, if you are dark skinned, do not go out if it's not urgent because things are really ugly outside." So it was a Dominican talking to his fellow Dominicans to publish that. So it's literally taking everyone with dark skin, and no matter if you are Dominican, they actually arrest you. And then so they'll figure out on the way what's going on. So this
Yeah,
situation,
just for the sake of clarity, brother.
yeah,
I interviewed a brother from Tobago, which is our sister isle, who had gone to the Dominican Republic with his girlfriend. and he found that the police, because he was dark skinned, they assumed him to be a Haitian, and they roughed him up before they discovered that he was from another Caribbean country entirely. So it seems that yeah, that question of color becomes really a serious issue around these times. Let me just ask one more question, just for clarity. You know, some years back, we engaged in a region-wide campaign led by people like Brother Norman Gervon and others to boycott the Dom Rep and to boycott their products because they had announced a massive deportation of Haitians, a massive rescinding of citizenry with people who are going back to the early 20th century. Is this a continuation of that or something entirely new?
Yeah, so actually, as I mentioned earlier, the background is really complex. A lot of things had actually happened in, would say, the past few years that we cannot tell exactly that is why they are doing it now because there are several things. So the most recent thing would say um, the current president, like 2 months ago, um, yeah, exactly less than 2 months ago, during his taking possession, they invited the Haitian government, and the Haitian government did not assist that ceremony. So they were very mad. And about a year ago in the border, the building of irrigation canal from one of the rivers we shared in the border, that was actually a massive conflict with the Dominican Republic. That's from there they decided not to issue visa or renew work permits or resident cards for Haitians. So that was another thing. And we have a history with them that is very conflicted over and over. So we cannot tell exactly now the reason why they are doing it is because of X or Y reason, because the relationship is very complex.
Yes. Okay. Let's bring in Brother Pierre. See if he could shed further light on the issue. Brother Esperance, could you join us and engage this subject? I mean, Madsen says that we're talking about a complex issue. Is there any way for us to simplify it to understand it better?
I'm not sure if we told the audience, Shabaka, that Madsen is in the Dominican Republic and Pierre is in Haiti at the moment. So they're speaking to us from different places.
Okay, so how does it look? What does it look like to you, Pierre? This situation from the other side of the border. I'm not sure if Pierre is hearing
What,
us.
can you repeat your question?
Yes, we were listening to Madsen, and Madsen was telling us that the issues on the Dominican side of the border are complex. A number of things have led to the current situation, which does appears to have deeply rooted in race and history. What does it look like to you from your side of the border?
Well, the situation in Haiti. Okay, thank you for having me, and thank you, Madsen. And I know the situation in Dominican Republic today is very difficult. I saw a lot of pictures, and also I saw a lot of repatriation. Is not easy at this time for Haiti. For Haitian who live in DI, in Dominican Republic, and even those who live there legally, who have a, how do you call it, the necessary document to live in Dominican Republic. Regarding Haiti, the situation is still the same. There is no improvement, and the gang, they still have a lot of powerful. They do whatever they want, and we cannot talk about
Yeah, let me
a
ask you,
democracy in.
How would the deportation of 10,000 Haitians from the Dom Rep every week affect the life in Haiti right now?
Well, most deportation we have today, it's in in the north, like Cape Haitian, and like in the north and northeast. And I live in Port-au-Prince, and well, my organization doesn't work on immigration issue or in with deportation, and then I I I haven't seen any like a
You
group
haven't seen the
of,
impact of it yet. You
what do you
can't feel the
say?
impact of it. You can't feel the impact of these developments yet.
Yeah, in Port-au-Prince, not yet, because if you are in Cape Haitian, in the north or northeast, it's really difficult to come in Port-au-Prince because of the powerful of the gang, and then
Yes.
is not really safe, and that's why I will say I live in Port-au-Prince, and those who live in Port-au-Prince or in West Department, and we is not really affect a West Department, but it will come. It will affect a West Department soon because, as a Madsen said, and earlier, and the president of Dominican Republic said they will send a 10,000 people in Haiti every week. I don't. Well, I heard since 1 week they have already sent more than 10,000,
10,000.
but
Wow.
it's not really. Eh? What?
Yeah,
It's not
let me ask you
really
this.
an official.
Yeah, for the sake of our
Yeah.
listeners, right?
Shabaka, I
All
can add
But
something to
these
that.
Haitians that are in the Dom Rep, right? They provide, from what I understand, a critical labor force that is important to the prosperity of the Dominican Republic. All the fruit that we consume, things like bananas and so on, that come from the Dom Rep, that come right here to Trinidad and Tobago in our grocery stores, they're produced by Haitian labor. So how does the Dom Rep expect to deport so many of its brothers and sisters from its neighboring country, and to continue to provide cheap labor to the plantations that are operating there?
uh, well, let me say something. I think Haitian people, Haitian who live in Dominican Republic, many of them and work on how do you on construction and also sugarcane, and then
Yes, agriculture.
they help it they help a lot a Dominican economy, and
Yes.
also we are because of the
Yeah, this is what I
insecurity
want to
we
get
have
from
in
Madsen.
Haiti,
He's
the
a
powerful
process.
of the.
Madsen, you're in the Dom Rep. How
Yeah,
is that? How is the country? How is the government selling this to the that class that owns those plantations where all that Haitian labor is employed? How are they selling this? How are they? What are they promising to do in exchange?
yeah. So actually, I have to explain this to you guys. The situation of Haitian immigrants in Dominican Republic, they have been using it for politics years ago. So what I mean by that, the government every time they have an internal situation that they know their population will actually question them about it, they somehow create like a media boom with Haitian topics. So,
Yeah,
for
diversion, a
example,
diversion.
yeah, for example, exactly this week. So last week they announced the deportation of 10,000 Haitians weekly, right? So that is the topic every media is talking about. And guess what? On Monday this week, right? Exactly a week after, they passed a tax reform that will affect the economy and everybody on every way. So they actually use that as a strategy to mitigate what actually the population will question them for.
Yeah.
So
Who
the
benefits from
economy,
this new tax reform? Just out of curiosity, this tax reform is will benefit who, and who will suffer?
the working class will suffer
Yeah.
because they actually uh, they increase taxes on basically everything. So the working class will suffer. So in terms of the economy, in the short term, the economy will suffer, as you already mentioned. The low cost labor force in DR in agriculture and construction is made by Haitian, that close to a 90%.
Correct.
So they know that. So a lot of economists and people well versed in the topic, they are uh, sharing that the economy will be affected, but the government is telling that in order for the first thing, their strategy is to show their people that we represent uh, um, a menace for them. We are a problem. So if they get rid of Haitian in DR, all the problem will be solved. So that's the way they are selling it. So people know the economy will be affected. However, they see Haitian as a bigger risk for their society. That's the type of manipulation they've been doing. And somehow they had succeeded because
Yeah.
I can tell
Let me
from
ask
the
another question.
reaction we are seeing. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it possible, right, as one commentator suggested, that ever so often, in order to not to allow, so Haitians don't ever become real citizens of the DR, they have to engage in these mass deportations ever so often, knowing fully well that once they reopen the gates, people will come back, but they'll come back with less ability to negotiate a proper wage, because as they stay over time and the new generation is born there, that generation now has more rights to negotiate a better wage. So if you can deport everybody, you start the process over and you get back to your most basic wage. The people are easier to exploit under those circumstances. Is that you think that's a logical? Is that a
Yeah,
possibility?
it totally makes sense. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening. And I have to say that this current situation, we cannot actually put all the blame on Dominican Republic. The truth is, a lot of human rights violation is happening now. So the way people are being beaten just because of the color of your skin or your accent, and they are being detained in very inhumane situations, being sent back to Haiti. They are taking their stuff from them, and a lot of crazy things is happening. I know people who are locked in their home for over a week with fear of being detained and sent back to Haiti. So it's crazy. However, the problem is not only in the DR. What's happening in Haiti now, not only now, so would say for the past 3 decades, had a direct impact on what we Haitians in the Dominican Republic are living today. Because a lot of people here don't want to go back to Haiti. It's not because things are good in the DR, but because things are worse in Haiti. So we are talking about human rights violation in the DR, but also what's happening in Haiti. It's not better. So uh, um, whenever I have the chance to mention that, I say, hey, the solution to what we are experiencing in the DR is not in the DR, but in Haiti. We need to change things back at home. So for people to want to stay in their country. I'm here in the DR. I'm a professional. So I work here. Whatever I'm doing here, I could be doing that in my country. Right? I have a master's degree in anti-corruption study. Haiti, one of the biggest problems we have is corruption. I want to go back to Haiti to help my country. But at the moment, I don't want to go because it's not safe. So when we are talking about human rights violation and whatever is happening in the DR, I want us also to have that look in what's happening in Haiti and what has been happening for the past 30 years that put us where we are. When I came here in the DR to go to college, the amount of Haitian we have in the DR here was probably half of what we are now. But every year things are getting worse and worse in Haiti. So the closest place for people to go to save their lives is in the DR. So the situation is like bad in both sides. And unfortunately, we are in the middle of like the Dominican government and gangs controlling Haiti. So it's like we are where to go. Should I stay in the DR or should I go back to Haiti? So
Madam
that's
and Pierre,
actually the situation.
I'm gonna throw this out to you. We've had several programs here on Indaba where we've discussed the Haitian situation. Dr. Fergus, please correct me if I'm wrong, but most of our expert commentators have come forward and pointed the finger at imperialism as central to the problem in Haiti. Your views, Madison, your views, Pierre, we look forward to hearing your views on this subject.
I actually discussed that issue of imperialism with group discussion we have here. I have to say that is one thing we need to consider, and it is true when we go back to our history after the independence, Haiti had to pay to France a huge amount of money that we could not afford at the time. That we strained our economy for years, and we are still paying. Uh, uh, um, we are still paying for what happened almost 200 years ago. So that, yes, it does impact what's happening in Haiti now, and a lot of people know the relationship with the United States. That's another issue because somehow, yeah, because somehow the United States decides who should be president, who should be prime minister in Haiti, how a lot of things should happen in Haiti. So we know that. However, a lot of things we have to take care of them, no matter if imperialism is very high in the country or whatever, who's controlling what. But a lot of things, it's our responsibility. We cannot blame other people for that. What I mean
That's
by that, yeah,
go on,
what I
Madison.
mean by
Sorry.
that, yeah, it is like basic things like security in a country, um, food, basic needs that need to be covered. We cannot wait like for the international community to help us to do that. The environment, we need actually to take care of that. That is our responsibility. I'll take
That's a
a very
noble.
simple example. Yeah, I'll take a very quick example in the region here. Probably it's a different scenario. I cannot compare to Haiti, but when we talk about Cuba, for example, a country who had been under U.S. embargo for more than 50 years, without help, they are basically it's an embargo. You know, U.S. they cannot trade, they cannot do a lot of things with the world. However, they have one of the best educational system, one of the best healthcare system in the region. So they had an embargo. In Haiti, we can do a lot of things without depending on the international community or waiting for it's not our fault, it's other people's fault. I think it's time for us to take responsibility for what we can do for our country.
Yes, Pierre, Madison is saying Madison is looking at Haiti, the conditions in Haiti in relation to those in Cuba. Would you want to address this point first?
Well, I agree with Madsen, and even the situation is not good, is worse at this time for Haitian who live in Dominican Republic. But at the same time, in Haiti, the situation is worsened because of the powerful of the gang, because of the impunity, and also because of all key state institutions are collapsed. Today in Haiti, we cannot talk about the rule of law, because all indicators on rule of law are in red. That's why most so a lot of Haitian uh, don't have other choices. They have to leave the country. They try to leave Haiti because in Haiti anything can happen. You are not protected by the key state institution. You are not protected by the judicial system, by the police, and the gang, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah. Let me bring in Dr. Fergus here. Dr. Fergus, Madison makes a very interesting comparison there between the relationship between Haiti and the United States and Cuba and the United States. Cuba, of course, a long-standing victim of the blockade, and Haiti not being blockaded, but perhaps having even less control over its own destiny. I don't know, Dr. Fergus. Can you clarify this for the sake of our listeners?
You're putting me on the spot there. Yes, Madsen is correct. The government of Cuba since 1959, would have been able to exercise a certain kind of direction with firmness in spite of the hostility and aggression of the United States. But we shouldn't forget that for quite a number of years of that aggression, that Cuba could depend on Russia and the alliance that Russia was also associated with, to a lesser extent, communist China would have been able to render tremendous assistance, including financial, technological, and so on. I do not know if Haiti would have had any kind of assistance like that. I doubt very much. That is in terms of offer of assistance. I doubt, because that same period of the Castro regime in the 70s, 80s, 60s, 70s, 80s would have coincided with the combined rule of the Duvaliers. And I do not know that that same kind of outreach would have been there, and that would have come after the crippling effects of 80s compulsion to pay back to pay the ransom which France had inflicted on it. I don't think they ever recovered from that. And that period there of the 60s, 70s, when Cuba was building its economy and its social structure, was the period of the Duvaliers as well. So I think it's much more complicated than just overcoming the hostility of an imperialist power. The short of it is that Cuba had assistance that Haiti didn't have, and therefore that makes it much tougher for Haiti to have set that kind of development path. But we also know that when Aristide came in and attempted to change the course of Haiti, that imperial element again came in, to upset the Haitian situation.
Yeah,
So
and
yes, there's an element of the internal politics and political culture, but there is also the different weight of imperialism that is brought to bear on the two countries. Yeah. Now, I want to ask either of these gentlemen, but particularly Madsen, I kept wondering what is the size of the Haitian population approximately in the Dominican Republic. You know, that's one thing. And whether there is any methodology in having, documented as against undocumented Haitians, and those who are documented, so to speak, don't they go to school? And at this point in time, what happened to those who are enrolled in schools and so on? Are they hiding at home? Because if they venture out, as you said, that they risk being arrested, simply because of the color of their skin, not so much because of any proven document that they may have. And also, if you can answer, and I'm going to ask you this in relation to what happened in Trinidad with respect to the recent outflow of Venezuelans in the Trinidad, where lawyers jumped in to the picture to put restraint on the government taking action, against the Venezuelans to deport any. Is there that kind of legal intervention ever been made in the Dominican Republic to, let's say, have an injunction to restrain the government until, some kind of resolution takes place in a court of law? Yes, Madison.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So, um, currently, I have to say the situation of students, Haitian students in the DR, um, will go with two levels. So we have the group that is studying in college, usually from Haiti after they finish high school, so enroll in college here in DDR. So they do have a student permit. They are fine. They are fine somehow, but they still get arrested after they send you somewhere. They figure out you are a student, so they can decide to release you, but they still get arrested. So for school like primary and secondary school, so there, one thing I need to give it to the Dominican government, there is no discrimination there in if you can enroll your kids at school if you are illegal or not. There is no issue with that. Almost all Haitian kids in the DR they go to school. They have no problem with that. So, but now some parents are not sending their kids to school because also minors are being detained and deported. So that is the problem. So yes, they can go to school, but a lot of parents decided not to send their kids to school. Yeah. So regarding the legal endeavor to try to stop this mass deportation from, let's say, um, the government, we never had that in DR. So most of the time, this group who should do that, they support the government's action. We do have a lot of NGOs working in DR defending immigrants' rights, but their actions usually is limited to assisting the victims, but not taking like bigger action to confront the government. So things that happening this week, for example, the Catholic Church in DR they issued a statement last night expressing concerns about how the deportations are being done, but that is just expressing their concerns. It's not a call to action. The same way, yesterday also, the Permanent Council of the American State Organization, they held a session also in Washington yesterday, especially on this topic. Pierre Espérance was invited, I think, and it was just listening, evaluating the situation, but there is no actually call to a stop. Okay, it's just okay. This is what's happening. We don't know until when they will continue with this hunting operation. So probably for the rest of the year, we don't know. But this is actually the situation, and is everyone sees what's going on, and it's just happening.
Yes, well, at this time, let's say good night to our listeners on 91.1 FM. Thanks for listening. And we should see you again next week at the same time for another edition of Indaba, where knowledge grows. Yes, I don't know if Pierre wants to comment on that, because it's more particularly as an inside DR situation, but perhaps he might have something he wants to share as well. Yes, go ahead, Pierre, if you want to comment on that.
No, no, I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay, Shabaka, over to you.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems to me that what we're faced with here is another situation where the rights of the human rights of Haitians working and living in the DR are in real jeopardy. And, young people are going to be separated from their parents, family members are going to disappear. I mean, the numbers, the ambition and scale of this endeavor is such that regardless of how it is approached, and of course we know that the history, basically, we look at the history of these kinds of measures, we know that there tends to be a very kind of cavalier kind of brutish affair. People are going to suffer, and so we have to become alert again across the Caribbean. We have to start to think. We have to start to think how we will treat with this matter, because it certainly is something that that injustice taking place in the Dom Rep is certainly a threat to justice all across the region, and it undermines the notion of that we have about who we are, and and the values that we represent as a people.
But
And so,
Shabaka, is that an issue that the Permanent Forum, the UN Permanent Forum, can take up, let's say, at the United Nations level on behalf of the people of Haiti?
well, certainly that's what the permanent forum was envisioned to do. Is issues like this that are challenging for those of us in civil society, in individual countries, or in one part of the Caribbean or the other. Those are the kinds of issues that the permanent forum is designed to address.
But Madsen, is that an issue that you would like to bring to the Permanent Forum? Because we do have a Caribbean person, a Caribbean luminary as president of the forum for the next year, and she's pretty active, Dr. June Sumo. Is that something that you can take? Because you'll have to take advantage of whatever avenues you have available to you in order to help that situation. The Permanent Forum might be one of them. It's new, and therefore it's something that you could perhaps consider. Is that something at all you have thought about?
Yeah, I think that is a good option, definitely, because even though we do recognize the rights the Dominican has to actually deport illegal immigrants in their country, they have the rights to do that. But how things is being done at the moment is uh, unacceptable, and I believe it wherever we can take the matter to make them stop, we should. And I agree with that. If we have to go to the UN Permanent Forum to expose the situation, we should do that. But first of all, one thing that should be happening that is not happening now is that discussion between the Haitian government and the Dominican government to find a solution. I think that is the first step before we can go to the UN forum. So the diplomatic missions in both down and discuss, hey, this is what's happening, what's what's not going well, and what should be addressed. I think the first step is this, and unfortunately now that is not happening. And we only, uh, what I can say is, Haiti's foreign minister issued a statement this week also expressing the concerns about what's going on with the deportation. The prime minister also did the same. And in addition, the meeting that was held um, at WAS Permanent Council yesterday. So, but in terms of diplomatic relationship, it used to exist a binational committee to discuss issues between the two countries. That does not exist anymore. So, yes, I agree with that option to take things to a next level, but before you take things to a next level, you need to do the first step. So the first step is that discussion between both governments, and if we cannot get to an agreement and human rights is being violated by the DR, then we go to the next level. Because now, not only human rights violation, we have a humanitarian crisis also that is killing Haiti. As Shabak asked later, how this deportation are affecting Haiti now. The problem is that humanitarian crisis. I spoke to people who had been taken to Haiti this week, and some of them they cannot get to their home because it's almost impossible to travel some places. So they are in places where they have no money, no food, they know nobody in their own country, they cannot get home. So the humanitarian crisis already existed in Haiti is getting worse with this situation. So I think a lot of things need to be done. That is one option. But I would say the first thing is the use of diplomacy, the proper way by both countries to address this issue.
Yes, indeed. And I think it's at times like these also we are shocked by the weakness, I don't want to say uselessness, but the weakness of CARICOM diplomacy. Because you would expect that a CARICOM country would have at least demanded that CARICOM have some kind of emergency meeting. By now, at least summon the heads of government to some emergency meeting to deal with that situation that suddenly reared its head once more. But as usual, I don't know. I can't condemn them outright, but I don't know. But I have not heard, I have not read anything about any response coming from CARICOM. And it's always shocking that CARICOM seems to take a backseat when they ought to be rising to the occasion in order to show that, it's a single region and that a regional partner should not be facing that kind of discrimination from a neighboring country. At this time, I think we need to invite each of our guests to make their closing remarks as we wrap up this evening session of Indaba. Pierre, would you like to go first? Your closing remarks?
Yes. Well, I think CARICOM should be mobilized, but to see how to help Haiti. But at the same time, Dominican Republic is not a member of a CARICOM country, and I think what should be done, the Haitian government and also civil society. First of all, Haitian government, the Haitian authority should mobilize, should talk with two OAS members other countries, and to convoke adequately a meeting in Washington, and also mobilize the High Commission for Refugees and civil society organization in Haiti and DR should do a lot of advocacy with international a human rights organization to talk to OAS and United Nations to see how to stop the authorities in Dominican Republic, and they need to respect the human rights. Even they have to protect their country, but at the same time, they need to respect the right of the people. And also, Haitian authority should work to improve the security situation, and Haitian can stay in their country.
Thank
So
you.
Pierre
Madsen?
Pierre still has a lot of faith in organizations like the OAS and in meetings in Washington D.C. Madison, you want your closing remarks?
Yes. As you mentioned, OAS meeting in DC, I was watching that meeting live yesterday, and I don't have a lot of faith, so I have to admit it. And civil society in DR, we are um, doing whatever we can to help people. So a lot of us at a very low capacity because we are at the same time exposed as well. But what we need, as I mentioned earlier, um, the Haitian government needs to sit down with the Dominican government and have a serious talk about what's going on because civil society, we are doing our part, but we do not have the power to make a lot of things happen. The governments, they can. So that is one thing. And again, we do respect the government, the Dominican government's right to decide who they want in the country and who they do not want. However, the way they are treating us Haitians now is unacceptable. So we want that to stop. We want for them to respect human rights. And in the other hand, the Haitian government, we need to have the minimum for us to stay in our country. So a lot of people are locked in their home in they are not able to go to the supermarket, not able to go to work. A lot of Haitian in DR, they are street sellers. So if they don't go outside, they cannot buy food for their family. So a lot of them would prefer to go back to Haiti instead of staying locked at home. But they cannot because the country, most of the important part of the country is controlled by armed gangs. So we need the Haitian government to create the minimum required for Haitian people to be able to stay at home. And again, we don't know for how long this will be ongoing. Hopefully, we'll stop very soon. But if not, the humanitarian crisis already existed in Haiti will get worsened, and we don't want to go there because we know we are going from bad to worse every year. So thank you for having me. Thank you for this opportunity. Really, there is a lot to talk about Haiti. So I really appreciate the time and the audience as well. Thank you for listening to us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yes,
brother.
thank you. Thank you.
I
I will have the honor of greeting our online fans this evening. I believe our guests may have been checking the comments because Johnny Math would have been speaking to the issue of human rights in Haiti, and both our guests addressed those. I hope you were satisfied with the answer.
Ruby Pierre says that Madsen is correct in saying his comment on Haiti, the situation there in Haiti, and also a comment on the foreign and elite Haitians and the politics of assassination in Haiti. Commented also on Jovenel Moïse, the same Ruby Pierre, and continue with other comments. So thank you for joining us this evening. And it's a discussion that we would not ever conclude because the situation in Haiti is multidimensional and complex, as Madsen said. So from time to time, we will be getting back to address the question in Haiti. And hopefully, of course, it's not always a negative discussion because Haiti is such a vibrant civilization and has done so much for the Caribbean, the Americas, and the world in terms of the sacrifices that they have made to free the Americas from the clutches of slavery and by extension colonialism that represented us on the global stage when they were the only independent Black nation in the Caribbean, throughout the early 20th century as well. So we owe Haiti so much, and we are always grateful to Haiti. So we will speak to the Haitian people from time to time. Yes, my brother.
It's simply to say, brother, that our solidarity is with our brothers and sisters in Haiti, whether they're on the side or on one side of the island or the other. We do not forget what they did for us. They gave us liberty. They gave us freedom. They gave us the opportunity to advance our civilization one step further, and we do not forget. And so we will continue to look closely at this issue and to try to figure out how we can intervene. And I think we can do no less, my brother.
Yes, my brother. So see you next week, same time, on Indaba, on the various platforms. Have a good night, good evening, and if you're in another part of the world, good morning.